Okay, so you've just picked up your airplane after maintenance. The paperwork's complete, but is the airplane really ready? This safety video, put together by our Safety Foundation, looks at an event that happened to one of our citation pilots. Let's have a look.
Traffic.
Climb. Okay, we'll be joining the course shortly, and we're up to 290.
Cabin altitude.
Cabin altitude? What's Jesus? What's that on for? Okay, emergency descent. Okay.
Autopilot.
Excellent.
Autopilot.
Center
Autopilot.
525 Bravo. Go. Declaring emergency. We're in emergency descent. We got a pressurization problem.
Citation 525 Bravo Golf Denver Center. Copy. Descend to maintain 12000 altimeter 2992.
12000 2992 525 Bravo Go. 12000. Okay, speed brakes. We got power idle. Get down. How in the world does that happen? Okay. How in the world?
Well, that was just a little too uncomfortable for me. You may have noticed in the climb out, I got distracted by a traffic alert, and I didn't notice that the cabin was not climbing. To top that off, I actually took off with the pressurization system in the off mode. You probably don't think that could happen to you, right? Never happened to you. Actually, it does happen to more people than you think. As a matter of fact, it happened, that same exact scenario happened to our very own former CJP chairman, Mr. Mark Gallow. Welcome, Mark.
Great to be here, David.
Mark has been generous enough to talk to us today about exactly what happened to him in hopes that it won't happen to you. So I think your scenario, your airplane, your CJ3 Plus, was in for maintenance. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And during part of the service, something happened with the main entry door. Just some of the paint came off, and so that had to be repaired as well. And so I was already preconditioned to be thinking about the pressurization as a possible problem, because they had to do a pressurization check on my airplane. And you would think with that, I did exactly what I had expected to do, which was even more diligent in my pre-flight. And the air source selector that's down there on the bottom left for the CJ3 Plus, I made sure that switch was in the vertical position. I touched it, I looked at it, and I was saying, okay, everything is good. But I had noticed that the throttles when I got into the airplane were in the fully forward position.
Right.
And that was kind of odd to me. And I said, look at this. We always know when you're going in for maintenance how you have to be so diligent about, doing a pre-flight. I said, I got it. They made a mistake here. So I put these back into the off position from the full position, and I finished my pre-flight, and then off I went and got ready to take off. I can keep going explaining the story, or do you want to?
Does it get better from there?
Yeah, so, I take off, everything is going well. I use an electronic checklist, everything is positive. In my case, I did get to the checklist item that says pressurization. All it says in the checklist is pressurization check. And I was looking, and the cabin altitude wasn't climbing particularly quickly. Everything looked like it was fine. And then I got cleared up to 280, and passing right around 260, I got just what you saw. Cabin altitude. And I was there, same sort of shocked that you had. What?
Yeah.
I immediately reached for my mask, put the mask on, EMER position, the mic select switch to the oxy mask position, the memory items that we've done so often. and took the airplane off of autopilot, started the descent back to idle, called ATC, declared an emergency. Same as you, took care of the passenger that I had in the airplane. And in the descent, then I pulled out the abnormal checklist to go through, try and diagnose what could have happened here.
Right.
And in there, once again, looked right over at the air source selector and said, air source selector in the both position, saw it was vertical. I said, gee, something must have happened with that main entry door problem. So I had a confirmation bias that was saying to me, I know that this must be a problem with the main entry door and not something that I've made a mistake with here.
Right.
So I land, the service techs come out to see me because they know I've declared an emergency and I've gotten back. I step out of the airplane and people are crowded around and I still have in my mind something went wrong with that main entry door. So I tell them exactly what happened, and one of the lead techs says, so what about the position of the air source selector? I said, yeah, I've checked it numerous times. I was really pleased with how I had handled that emergency. I checked it, it's both. So he gets into the airplane and he comes back out and he goes, well, it's not in the both position now. And I said, what? So I get in, I take a look, and it's vertical, but it's a 6-position switch, and vertical is both or off. So yeah, I also had a confirmation bias of every time I've checked it, that is in a vertical position. I didn't.
It has a little white line. We'll
It's a
show
little
a close-up of that, but it's a very little white line.
And I clearly did not really see where that vertical white line was. I was expecting to see it vertically, and I was. So I had a confirmation bias that said it's got to be something with the repair that's been done, and a confirmation bias that that switch was going to be in the vertical position, and it was for both. And then as we continued talking with the service techs, and I told them, I said, gee, when I got into the airplane, the throttles were in the full position. They said, whoa, that's not supposed to be the case. So what it had turned out is somehow the techs hadn't finished the test, hadn't put that switch back into position, and since I was already with all of these biases, a whole series of steps occurred in a row, and that's what led to the emergency.
So I guess with the emergency declaration, the FAA got involved, and there was some paperwork involved and questions?
Yeah, I had already written some notes to myself, and I sent them to you saying, gee, maybe somebody's going to benefit from this. And I didn't think that I wanted to be, the guy that was going to be saying, I made this mistake. But the FAA reached out to me 2 or 3 days later and said, we'd like a more thorough explanation of what occurred with your emergency. So I just completed that note to file, which I write these to myself all the time, and I sent it to the FAA, and within an hour, and the FAA inspector got back to me. He says, wow, this is really thorough description. Thank you very much. And he said, unless there's something else we need, that this will be the end of that action. But then I had sent it to you, and I thought about it some more, and you and I talked about it and said, this was just something that could happen to absolutely anybody. And of course, as you know, recently we've now seen on the website some other people, coming up with with similar types of stories. But one of the things that really sort of hit me was that pressurization check. Even though I did it, that was one other area where I wasn't really seeing
What we watched your mind, yeah.
My mind was just seeing the cabin altitudes, not really climbing all that fast.
Right.
But in the case of the CJ3 Plus or the M2 or the 525 series, it's because there are 2 seals. And so the active seal, but there's also a passive seal, which keeps enough pressurization in so that I didn't get to 10,000 feet until I climbed above 260.
Right.
And everything looked fine to me because, once again, it was so routine. Pressurization, check. Yeah, it's not climbing all that fast, and it's way below my altitude. Must be good.
As a result of your situation, CJP, we have created a post-maintenance little checklist laminated on 2 sides that you can actually keep in the side pocket of your airplane to kind of remind us again, especially coming out of maintenance, what can happen, what switches are turned off and that you would normally not have turned off. And your situation is a great learning experience. It's going to happen to other people, and if we can through your generosity of sharing your story, if we can inform others as to things that might happen, it just might save some grief for a lot of pilots. So
I think that that's a great outcome from it, because, you know, when I did give you my experience, and you and I started talking about how many times we've had a maintenance-induced fault that, you know, we have to catch on pre-flight. I love the way that you were describing it when you said, every time I get an airplane out of maintenance, I know somebody has set something wrong in order to try and trip me up, and my whole thing, I have to find it. And then when, among the safety committee, when we started talking about that and everybody was bringing up other things that had happened to them, our list ended up becoming pretty easy to complete.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you so much for volunteering to share your experience. It will be a huge benefit to our members.
I hope somebody does benefit from it and doesn't end up, you know, maybe doing something that would be more dangerous than what you just experienced.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, guys. We've prepared a list of items that warrant special attention after maintenance. It's available on our safety page at citationjetpilots.com. Fly safe, and we'll see you next time.